The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the QATV staff or board of directors. QATV, in compliance with FCC regulations, is prohibited from exercising control over the content of independent, member-produced public access programming.
Hello, and welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm Kumu Gupta, your host, and today we're doing a special on domestic violence awareness, October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And domestic violence is one of those things that no one really talks about, but it's there. It's there every day. It's there in every walk of life, through every every kind of circumstance. And luckily for us, we have come to the point today after about 50 years now, where we have resources, we have services that, and we don't have to suffer. Victims don't have to suffer in silence, and that's what my bracelet I'm wearing is called. It's a blue bracelet. It's called No More MA, and it's part. No More is a campaign that stands for No More Silence, No More Violence, and the Massachusetts campaign is a joint initiative with Jane Doe and the No More campaign. And today I have with me a very special guest from the Asian Task Force, and her name is Trisha Ma. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes. And domestic violence is something that can be seen across the board. Be it the Asian community, be it the mainstream. It has no race or no bias. And here in Quincy, we are very fortunate that we've always had people who have stood up and fought for the victims' rights and getting them the resources that we need. Starting from our former Congressman William Delahunt. He reintroduced the International Violence Against Women Act, and to reauthorize it, and it passed the House and the Senate. And then also following him, we had Congressman William Keating, and he was also he is still a big champion of domestic violence, and he still to this day, does the White Ribbon campaign on Capitol Hill. And so, of course, our governor, he's a champion. He's a big supporter of this cause, and he has a governor's council on domestic violence and awareness. So we've been very fortunate here in Massachusetts and in Quincy that this issue has a lot of support. And I was saying when I opened the show, I just said 50 years. 50 years because this year we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act. Now, this act was authored by then Senator Joe Biden, and today he is the vice president, and he is a big influence in helping guide our national policies for protection of women's rights and victims' rights and resources. So we just celebrated 50 years of VAWA, which is VAWA, Violence Against Women's Act. So, I think we have come a long way, but we still have a long ways to go. And so with that, I would like to, introduce Trisha Ma. As I said, she's with the Asian Task Force, and Asian Task Force mainly helps women in the Asian community, but there's also outreach to everybody and resources for everyone. So Trisha, do you want to start by telling us a little about yourself and about ATASK and how you got started with them?
Yes, so my name is Trisha Ma again, and I work at Asian Task Force Against Domestic Violence. We call it ATASK for short. And I've been with the organization for 3 years now. I've been working with their outreach and education department for the last since I've joined, and so my role has always been to really work more on the preventative side, on providing resources and letting different communities know about our organization and the services we provide, as well as educating those communities, as well as other services and other agencies that may work with the Asian communities. ATASK has been around for 22 years, and it really was started by community people who really noticed a need in the Asian, especially the Asian immigrant communities, that there was a need to have domestic violence resources accessible to them. Mainstream organizations weren't as accessible, and so they started this organization. And since then, we've opened up a shelter. We have a transitional housing program. Our community-based services also includes, offering English classes as well as life skills classes. The majority of the people we work with are immigrants, so that's they're able to gain more skills to become more independent, after they leave their abusers. And we really offer the direct services. Our advocates provide not only support just with language, but also really helping our clients interpret just all the different systems they may have to be a part of in order to get support for the organization. And I really, our department really works to bring awareness and let people know about these services, as well as train other service organizations that may work with immigrants or may work with Asian communities, so that they know how to appropriately support our communities.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
That's very good. Yeah, speaking of domestic violence in the Asian community, I started back in 2002 when I first moved to Massachusetts. I started volunteering with Saheli, which is a South Asian women's group that helps, among other things, helps victims of domestic violence in like the Indian and the Bangladesh and all the South Asian communities. Yes. And one day I was driving down on 195, and I saw this Jane Doe big board up there. It said, donate a cell phone, and I said, "Oh, what a nice idea!" So I talked to Saheli, and I said, "How about getting something like this going for the South Asian community?" And they said, "Yeah, that's a good idea, and let's try it." And so, so I ended up launching the donate a cell phone for them.
That's
and
great.
And so in the beginning, I didn't know much about it, so I found this foundation called Verizon Wireless Foundation, and what that foundation is the non-profit wing of all the cellular companies. So they had a program called Call to Protect, and through that program you could get free cell phones donated, for this kind of purpose, with 3,000 free air minutes. So I started with them, and that's what this poster is. It says donate a phone because what's useless to you is priceless to her. But unfortunately, the program got discontinued. So, I looked some more, and I came to learn about Hopeline, which is Verizon's Verizon Wireless program for, donating cell phones. So, I formed a partnership with them, and then, we started getting phones for Saheli through them. And then after that, I was with the Quincy Mayor's Human Rights Commission, and I was the vice chair of that. So I had an opportunity through that to take part in organizing an event at the Brockton Rocks baseball game, where before the game started, about 1,500 men in the audience stood up and took a pledge for men against domestic violence.
Yes.
So that was very, very nice. It was very nice to see so many people stand up for this cause.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how it is across all Asian communities. I suspect it is similar, but I know that like in Indian community, at least back in India, hitting somebody, like even a kid, like if you don't do your homework, you just get you get hit that you need to finish your homework or you won't be a good student. Mm-hmm. So but that it's not okay. It's not okay, mm-hmm. To hit somebody, and so my question to you, since you see this often, is how would you define domestic violence? How would you? What are some of the symptoms? What are some of the signs to look for to know that this is what is happening?
Yeah. One thing that I always tell people is that domestic violence happens everywhere. Doesn't matter what community. Abuse does not discriminate based on your race or your class or who you are in a relationship with. It really affects everybody. It really is about having power and control. So the person who is abusing really wants to maintain power and control over the victim, over the other people, whether it be their husband or their wife or their children or their partner. And they use fear a lot to really to cause the abuse, or to bring the abuse forward, and to make sure that they're able to have control and power. Mm-hmm. One of the things where I teach a lot of high school students, and when we go in, we really break down a lot of myths about who it happens to, and what it looks like. So we hear a lot about physical abuse. Someone's hitting you or kicking you, but abuse comes in many forms. Also can be mental or verbal, which can be yelling or threatening somebody or stalking somebody. It could also be financial. So there are times where the person abusing may not allow their partner to work or to go to school. So therefore they have to be dependent on the person who's abusing. And that one, some people don't see that as often, or they don't hear about it as often, but it is also a type of abuse. There's also sexual abuse. So people often think when it has to do between an adult and a child, but it also can be between two adults, where the person abusing may be forcing another person to do something sexually they don't want to do, or making them look at things that they don't want to look at. And the last type of abuse actually that ATAS actually talks a lot about, and most people actually don't know about, is cultural abuse. So, we work with Asian communities, but so we hear about cultural abuse, and for instance, like if someone's an immigrant, like not allowing an immigrant to this country, not allowing them to learn English, so therefore they're lacking a skill that makes it easier for them to function in this country. Cultural could also be if it's a gay relationship, and maybe one person hasn't told their family that they're gay, and the person abusing may say, I'm going to tell your family that we're in a relationship, and they can use that, and that is cultural. And so often people forget that not allowing someone to be who they are or to practice the customs that they're used to is also abusive.
Yes, there are many forms that are subtle. Some are subtle and some are more direct.
Yes.
So, and as you said, it's more about power and control.
Yes.
Than anything else. And I think a lot of times it's also connected or comes in with alcoholism and other forms of addiction, where people lose control and then they start, if they're drunk or something,
We've actually found that alcohol and substance use doesn't cause the abuse. It does make the abuse worse, and it can influence how bad it is. Because people who abuse are trying to maintain power and control, they may use alcohol as an excuse, but really they're taking the power and control, and then drinking may just be an easier way to be like, oh, it was just the alcohol, but it really wasn't. Right. And there are plenty of people who are abusive who don't touch substance, they don't drink at all, and they don't take drugs, and they really just use power and control. I often tell teens and also other adults that I teach that we think alcohol is making it happen, but if that was the case, everyone that would drink would be abusive, and we know that that's not the case. And so we really try and break down myths like that. And unfortunately, we may see a prevalence of substance use in in communities, and then people sometimes connect that, but it's really more about having power and control. And it's hard to have power and control if you are under the influence of something.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, and then how about children of perpetrators growing up to be them being like that, and then connected with that, I also wanted to ask you, like, do you have any statistics for Massachusetts that how prevalent is domestic violence, and do you have a breakup of how much it is in the Asian community or in some other, do you have any different kinds of data or?
Yeah, I don't have statistics around like if you're a child if you're abused as a child, if you're more likely or less likely to become an abuser. We do know that just because you come from an abusive home doesn't mean that you are going to be abusive.
Yeah.
I have close friends and family who come from abusive homes and they're not violent at all.
Right.
We have other influences that kind of tell us what is right and what is wrong. And as a child, we know what's right and wrong very
Right.
early, so we can
Right.
tell.
Right.
Sometimes we make unhealthy decisions, and people who abuse are making unhealthy decisions, and that's what's causing. And there's different things around like power and control that cause the abuse, but witnessing it doesn't mean you're more likely to become an abuser. And that's something I tell folks, because sometimes I think sometimes people feel like they have to be, or that they're more likely to be, and I try and tell them that no, that doesn't matter. As far as how likely abuse happens, I don't have statistics around the state, but I know nationally, this is how often abuse happens, is that nationally in the United States, it's about 1 in 3 women and about 1 in 6 men will experience some sort of abuse in their lifetime, and that's just what's reported. So as like our laws and our policies start changing, under VAWA, sometimes abuse gets redefined redefined or slightly changed, and so statistics will change over the course of time. I know that in Massachusetts, each state has its own laws and what they consider abuse, and so Massachusetts they consider abuse happens between not only people who are married or dating or between a parent and a child. They also consider abuse if it happens between roommates. So if you're living with someone that you're not related to or not in a relationship with, that can also be considered abuse if one of them is having power and control and abusing the other person. And that's not like that in all states. So state-wise, it would differ.
Right.
As far as within the Asian community, it's really hard to have accurate numbers.
Because they don't report it.
Right,
as
they
much.
don't report it. And we find that often communities of color or communities that are more marginalized in this country, they're less likely to report because they don't feel safe in reporting, or things like racism may make them feel like they can't report it, because then actually they might be treated worse by someone that's supposed to be helping them. I know that the Center for Disease Control recently came out with this this amazing infographic that you can find on the internet, and they did have some statistics broken down by race, and they did say 1 in 5 Asian women will experience some sort of whether it be rape or physical violence or stalking in their lifetime. What was interesting is they didn't have the statistics for men, and I think it's probably because it's so underreported that they weren't able to collect enough information. Within the Asian communities, in addition to racism, stuff like language is a really big barrier to being able to report it, or a lot of the folks that we work with are immigrants, and we get a lot of calls and people say that they're undocumented and they don't want to report it because they're afraid if they report it then someone's going to find out they're undocumented. And so it's really hard to find numbers specifically, but we know that it happens a lot. And it looks different. I mean, that's one of the major differences with abuse in the different communities, is that the abuse looks different. And so what mainstream society may identify as abuse, it may not look exactly the same in Asian communities.
Right. Yeah, no, it's hard enough to go through something, but then to have enough courage to to report it, and then to take steps to get away from your abuser, and then to start a fresh life somewhere else.
Yes.
And stand up on your own and learn to get back your confidence and be self-dependent. And I think that's why organizations like Saheli, and I'm sure ATASK also, offer classes in English, computer literacy. They do workshops on how to be financially independent.
Yeah.
And one thing, it's we don't need to say it, but it's a very obvious thing. But most of the shelters, all the shelters, they are not anonymous but hidden. Like you don't know where they are,
Right.
Protected so that so that your abuser can't find you. So it's tough. I mean, it's really tough because a lot of times, the person, let's say a woman, she'll end up internalizing it and say, oh, I deserve this. I did something to provoke the person, or to evoke this kind of rage, or So some women, they know that, okay, this is this is wrong. That what's happening is wrong, and they'll stand up to it, and they'll have the courage to call out for help. So there are these hotlines that that you can call, and you can speak in anonymity, and then they will tell you how to get out. They help you to make a plan, and help you to get away from this. So ATASK has a hotline too.
Yes, we do have a hotline. It's 24 hours, and it's actually multilingual. So we, one of the things that we really let people know is that ATASK is multilingual. We're the only domestic violence agency that specifically works with Asian communities in the state. And so, our helpline is multilingual. So if someone calls and let's say they speak, Hindi, they're able to connect with someone else who speaks Hindi and who can understand what sort of help they need. And all of our advocates speak at least one other language in addition to English. So they're able to really provide support through the helpline, and then additional support afterwards.
So how does that work? So first of all, actually, can you give out your 800 number?
Yes, it's actually not an 800 number, but it's a Massachusetts number. It's 617-338-2355. That's our hotline, our helpline.
Okay. So how does do you want to go through a scenario like once somebody leaves a message, or is it manned all the time, or do you have to leave a message?
No, it's manned all the time. So you have someone who's calling. We get thousands of calls every year for different reasons. Not all of them are crisis calls. But for instance, if it is someone who is looking for needs immediate assistance. Let's say they've left their abusive home, and maybe they're at the police station, and they're calling our helpline. So they get connected to an advocate who speaks the language. If it's not the person who actually answers the phone, sometimes the person that answers the phone may be able to support them. And the advocate really asks questions concerning the safety and what exactly the person's needs are, and then there's a follow-up within a day as far as like what ensuring that person is getting the support that they want. Sometimes we even have people who are calling just to see what we're about. So oftentimes, we are the first people that they call. They may not call 911, they may not call the police, but they will call us first because they know that we're not gonna tell somebody else. So if sometimes they call just to see, like asking questions about, is it safe is it safe for me to call? Is it safe for me to tell you what's happening? What can I do in this situation? So
it's manned 24 hours, and somebody's
Yes.
there all the time,
Yes.
which is a very good thing.
Yes.
That's excellent. And so they immediately get connected to an advocate.
If it's a crisis situation, yes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
If not, there's always a follow-up within a couple days. And again, it really depends on the needs. We get so many different kinds of requests, and not all of them are crisis related.
And then do you also provide support, like, let's say, it's determined that the person needs to get a restraining order against her abuser.
Mm-hmm.
So if she needs a lawyer, so are you able to provide her with, like a free legal assistance? And do you go to court with that person in case they don't know how to speak English?
Yes, so one of the great things about our advocates is that they not only serve as like translators, but they can interpret, all the different systems. So like, if someone is coming and they need a restraining order, we can connect them with the lawyer and go to court with them to help figure out, we actually work collaborated with the Norfolk DA's office, and so we've worked with Quincy in the past, and the police department in Quincy, to serve as translators. So if they, because there's a significant Asian population in Quincy, they'll call us and say, we need someone to help translate with this domestic violence case,
Right.
and so they're able to really support that person throughout the entire process.
Okay, so what are some of the other support services that you provide? You have the hotline, you have the advocates, and then does ATASK have a shelter, or do you work with other shelters?
We do have a shelter, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a shelter. I know this last year we were able to supply like 6,000 beds, and so like that we don't have 6,000 beds, but like
Right,
we
right.
were able to really serve like up to 6 people who needed
A place.
needed a place to stay, up to 6,000 times, and so
Oh my
it was we really work to really provide safety to the people that need it, and we have a transitional housing program which is much newer. It's only a few years old, which has actually helped our clients who maybe stayed in the shelter but are now looking for more permanent housing, and so we're able to offer additional support for them to have a safe place to live.
Yeah, so I mean, here in Quincy, we have Dove and
Yeah, and
domestic
we've worked with
violence. Yeah, domestic violence ended, and I had invited them to the show, and I'd also invited our Norfolk County DA, Michael
Yeah.
Morrissey. But October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, they're all super busy,
Yes.
and they couldn't come.
Yes.
So one thing I've learned from Dove is that that they that they're word is not overused, I would say. I mean, it's like they have so many beds, but they have more cases, more people
Right.
needing.
Yeah.
So, and I was amazed to hear the amount by which they need help. The amount of more people, how many cases they're able to help, and how many more cases they need to help.
Yeah.
It was a big gap, and I was like, wow, that's a
Yeah.
lot. So do you find the same thing, or?
Yeah, so not everyone that comes to us needs shelter, but yeah, they're always, I think it's a general problem, unfortunately, that there's never enough beds for the number of people that need it. And so shelters typically have waiting lists. And so, we actually work collaboratively with Dove as well, to help support the work that they're doing, and they, vice versa. I think in general, folks that work in the domestic violence field, like, we really try and stay connected with each other. Yes. So that we can really reach out to people, as needed. Dove, we actually do a training every year with Dove around just cultural competency, so how to work with immigrants, because their staff may work with immigrants, not necessarily Asian, but being able to support their clients, and like I said, we work with Dove and Quincy in the Norfolk DA's office, with like case by case with clients. We ourselves, let me make sure I get the number correct. We had about 500 clients in the last year, and about 200 of them were Asian. And we had a little over 200 that were children. So we serve a lot of people as well, and our advocates are always really, really busy. I was talking to one advocate today, and she says she has like 30 clients, and that's just one person. She has 30 clients.
That's a lot.
And I'm sure some of them have children as well. And so, yeah, they're always busy.
Okay. So